Hello, everyone. What's going on? And welcome to Heather Wells, the Hidden Churn, aka Brain Balance, here to support you and help you whenever we can. My name's Corey. I am a brain balance parent and a father to a 9-year-old boy that struggles with some sensory issues. And with me, as always, is Heather Wells, board certified cognitive specialist and also national autism speaker. How you doing today, Heather?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm awesome. I'm good. We had a crazy thunderstorm here. I'm in Central Florida, so we had a crazy thunderstorm here yesterday that like wiped out power for a little bit. But I mean, we're back. There's nothing to complain about. It's bright. It's sunny. There's a palm tree outside of my window. I'm very, very lucky. So
Pocket dinosaur right out front. A little bit before we went live. Aren't armadillos, if they're out in the daytime, I'm not sure that's a positive sign. They might.
Oh no!
I thought they were nocturnal. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I mean, a little armadillo hanging out right out front in the middle of the day.
Well, that's Texas. That's Texas.
That is Texas.
Well, we're here to talk about transitions. And when we talk about transitions, what are they? What do they mean for our kids? And if you are watching on YouTube live right now, hi, welcome. You are on the Hidden Churn YouTube channel, and that is awesome. And we've got a couple other things that we want to talk about. There's a lot of transitions encompasses a lot of things, Heather. It could be, obviously the obvious transition right now is school, right? And whether it's at home or in person, there's a big transition to happen there. In fact, my 12-year-old daughter is learning how to do virtual school right now. She was face down the other day on the carpet, just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, oh, heaven forbid, 12-year-old, that you struggle with something for the first time in your life. Like, give me a break. No, but she figured it out. She's taken it a step at a time, but it is an adjustment. It is a transition. And as a father and as a parent, it's important to be a little bit more aware and knowledgeable when it comes to that. So with that, I hand it over to you, Heather. Walk us through some of these transitions. I know we've got a couple things we want to talk about, and I guess we should start with the obvious one right away, which is kind of determining what is the underlying issue with transitions. Yeah.
Yes, you have to do that first because there are many causes of issues with transitions. And that is anytime that can be going from one location to another. It can be stopping one activity and engaging in another activity. I mean, right now, school, as you said, is back in session. It's normal to have jitters. That's to be expected every year, but in particular this year with remote learning and 2 days here and 2 days there, everything is so different in school this year. And we did an entire show last Tuesday about the top 5 tips for alleviating back to school anxiety. And I encourage anyone to watch that who missed it. It's a huge transition going from elementary school to middle school, middle to high school to college, and so forth. And we went into a pretty deep dive on how to alleviate that, communicate, validate, journaling, doing something fun while you're talking about school, asking non-threatening questions, and so forth. The transitions we're really focusing in on today are the kids who have meltdowns, lash out, really struggle when it's time to leave circle time and do this. It's time to stop recess and come back inside. Any parents out there watching, teachers out there watching, know what I'm talking about. But why are they doing that? It can look very similar, but be coming from a different source. So the first thing we want to think about is if a student is diagnosed with ADHD, we have talked before about how the brains of kids with ADHD are wired differently. We all prefer to do the things we're engaged in and interested in that are part of our calling, one of our favorite hobbies. But for the ADHD brain, they have fewer reward receptors in the brain. And so a lot of times they walk around seeming bored. It doesn't mean they're not being challenged. It means that is not intrinsically motivated to me. Sometimes they're just too smart, smart britches. And that is the case. And we talked about twice exceptional before. But I am doing something that really I'm absorbed in. And now you're asking me to do something that is way less interesting. So how do we communicate to them something that they do care about the next thing we're doing. I know you know, maybe it's math. I know math isn't your favorite subject, but daddy's a CPA. You want to save up money for a car. That's a math skill, etc. Whatever it is. And that starts internalizing the motivation. Sometimes it's autism. And of course, there's a whole spectrum of autism. But in general, especially for the little ones, the world is confusing and it is overwhelming. And the only way I can make sense out of it is sameness. And so switching gears, having that cognitive flexibility is really difficult. And so we will talk about strategies for that. Sometimes it's sensory processing disorder, which can accompany one of these other diagnoses or be a standalone. Now, maybe I am hyper aroused by sensory stimuli and all the movement and the visual fray and the sounds, the buzzer that went off was overwhelming to me. And that is scary. And I show it through my emotions and behavior. Or I'm under responsive. I have difficulty following directions, or it didn't even register that you said anything.
Yep.
And so we have to think about managing that and keeping those. How can we calm that for them? Sometimes, what are some other things? There are just so many. Sometimes I'm lacking a skill that is needed for this transition. We have to get in the car. That means I have to tie my shoes, and that is so hard for me. But I don't know how to tell you that. I didn't know this is hard. I think it's just this impossible task. We talk all the time about how kids don't necessarily convey what is actually bothering them because it's all they've ever known, or they don't have the words for it. So are there skills? And that is why that we need to work on so that is not problematic. So observe your child. What are the patterns? Is it all transitions? If so, what do they do when they are having difficulty with the transition? Start looking for those patterns. I recommend logging it for a week or two, and patterns will emerge because we're going to go through a lot of recommendations, but all of these must be customized. And another thing to kind of encourage the progress on this task is to have a communication log between teachers and yourself. The teachers may see patterns of where the transition difficulties are. They try things, they find what works, they put it in that log. How does that apply to transitions you're seeing in your family life, or you found something that worked, you want to share it with them too. So have all of the adults in the child's life communicating with each other. I think a communication log is good because we sometimes forget. You see somebody and I had this thing to tell you, but I'm in the car line and I have to hurry up because everybody's waiting.
Right.
But be sure to communicate that with each other because you can both work together as a team to help your child get through the transition issues. And so then we've thought about many, many different causes. So now the best line of defense after that is let's prevent these meltdowns or anger outbursts in the first place. So as I said, if they're lacking skills you start noticing it's always when it has to do with putting on, taking off jackets. It always has to do with, he was engrossed in this. You start finding patterns. But if it's a skill, what can we do to work on it? A lot of students with communication delays, social emotional developments behind, all of these things can play in here. So let's say it's a communication delay. Let's work on their communications vocabulary. And one thing that's really important that I've noted in other contexts before is depending on the developmental level of your child, sometimes, okay, they're nonverbal. Let's get 1, 2, 3 words going here. If they are verbal and they say they're mad, what are 3 other words for mad? Help them come up with 3 other words for whatever they're feeling, scared, mad, fresh, and all of a sudden, I'm not really mad. I'm just a little bit irritated because I wanted to finish. And suddenly that is not a 10 on a scale of 0 to 10. That is a 6. And I can cope with a 6. When I have vocabulary for what I'm feeling, I start experiencing it at a level more in line with what I'm actually feeling. If I only have the word mad, body-brain connection, I'm going to act mad because it's all I know. Our communication, our words, our language are the way we convey our thoughts and our emotions. If I don't have the words for it, my communication is behavior. and meltdowns. By the way, another thing to think about is a lot of kids can kind of have obsessive tendencies, and to a certain degree, I mean, there's a stage where let's line things up, let's put things in different configurations. But if your child is diagnosed with OCD, or really you notice tendencies like OCD-ish, sometimes there's a lot of perfectionism that comes with that. And this can also apply to anxiety. OCD used to be categorized under anxiety disorders in the diagnostic manual. Now it's a separate entity. If that's the case, maybe they're frustrated because they really wanted to form their letters correctly. And now I have to rush and I'm not getting to. And so think about that. And are there any tweaks I can make to the routine where they have a little extra time, that kind of thing, or working with them through finish is better than perfect. That hashtag I gave you a while back.
Yeah.
But we talked last week, we've talked many times about establishing a routine. That routine needs to be flexible. And we even want to be very overt in discussing that with kids, because sometimes that is not what's on the schedule. And you said we were doing this at 4:00 and it's 4:07. And then they can't see the forest for the trees. So there might be times you want to, with them present, purposely rearrange the order of things to show them that and talk it out. Sometimes things happen and we have to scoot around our schedule, and it's okay. How does that make you feel? Not punching the emotion, but really putting concrete, literal language to that thing, so that when it actually, that is not an emotionally tense situation because it's not actually happening, but you're talking through it. So then when it actually happens, that is not as unfamiliar to me that sometimes things change. Mm-hmm. So have as much as possible, there's so many parts of the school day and life that kids do not have control over, but try to get their input on some of the things that they could have say on, which parts come first in the afternoon or something. Because I'm out of control of my emotions. The world doesn't make sense to me. I'm in sensory overload. I have to do school from this hour to this hour. I need a voice somewhere. And if you give them that, they're less likely to use their voice in an inappropriate, disrespectful way that causes issues. So, but visual is really important. We've talked about timers. There are studies showing that visual timers where they can see how much time is left until they get a break or until they must stop this thing that they're loving doing, that gives them some adjustment time. It's not abrupt. So sometimes verbal cues work with kids. What if I'm oblivious to what you're saying, or I'm processing it incorrectly and I don't understand? Play around. Do visual cues work better? Do verbal cues? Does a combination? Another thing that can be really helpful, you want to get your kids' attention before telling them it's transition time. If I'm I can feel like a drill sergeant. I'm doing my thing and all of a sudden, okay, go do this. Connect with them, get in front, eye contact, eye level, if appropriate, if they're tactile averse, this may not work, but for some kids, just kind of putting your hand on their shoulder and kind of having a little bit of connection. Relationship is everything. Yeah. Another thing that works really well, a lot of schools do this, but this is great at home too, is if you have important information to tell your kids, and you can make it a silly, fun game, but drum out a beat on your legs or snap or something, have them do it back to you. We just kind of engaged, you have their attention. They can do a beat, you do it back with them too, so it's two-way. And that usually really ups their ability to follow instructions. I definitely have your attention. We're engaging right now.
Yeah. My little buddy, if he has some video game time, which he does, he has a little bit of video game time every day, and these are educational video games that he plays and stuff. So, we have like Apple Arcade, right? Apple Arcade is pretty kid friendly. And so, he'll be like sneaky Sasquatch, and the sneaky Sasquatch has to run around.
That's hard to say.
It is. He runs around and he has to put his hand in like campers, food, and he like takes it and eats it and stuff. It's a funny game. Anyways, if I tell him like, hey buddy, 15 minutes till games are off. Okay. He'll just be like, yeah, cool. Like he doesn't really hear it. And so I know it's gone. And so sometimes I'll have to ask him to pause it. I'll be like, hey Raj, please pause it. And he'll go, yes, daddy. And he'll turn around and he'll look at me and I'll say, hey, 15 minutes. And then I thought that was enough, but it's actually not, because I'll do 15, 5, 2, and then it's time. And all he heard was it's time. And the transition so much that it will lead to a screaming thing with him. So
Yeah.
instead, what I've done, and this has kind of started to work a lot better, is I manage the expectation. After I say it's time to put it up, I let him know what the expectation is. And that is a yes, daddy. So it's not that he does it to make me happy. He's being given what the expectation is because he might not know, right? He knows he's supposed to stop, but how is he supposed to feel after? And so I say, hey, buddy, 15 minutes. And after this 15 minutes, I'm going to say, hey, Roger, it's time to stop playing games. And what are you going to do? And he's like, I'm going to say, yes, daddy. And I'm going to turn it off and I'm going to go do what you need me to do. And I'm like, that's excellent. Let's plan on that. Okay. I'll talk to you in a few minutes. And so that's actually worked really well for us as a family. It's not perfect every time, but it does work. And when he does actually give up the game and walk away, I positive reinforce, hey, way to go. Way to go, man. Way to listen. Good job.
Yes.
And that works.
Yes, that is outstanding. That is the entire goal of managing and making transitions smooth. Besides, you're going to keep your sanity because this child is, when you have kids acting out like this, it affects the entire family unit. It can affect the entire classroom, etc. Is for them to understand expectations. Anxiety comes from fear of the unknown. Sometimes it's from something specific, and I'll talk about that in a second. But part of the unknown is I don't understand the expectation. You know that has anybody out there been 5 months into school and you tell them to pack their backpack or get ready to run out the door? We got 3 minutes. And they still don't know how to do it. You're like, it's 5 months later. They don't have motor deficits. How do they not get this yet? And we've talked about mental schemas and putting up a picture of them when they are ready to walk out the door, putting up a picture of a clean bedroom, putting up a picture of this is what an organized backpack looks like. Then you tell them to match the picture. You are telling them to match the picture, basically. It's the same principle. And you know what? We were going to do this later, but because of what you shared about Roger, that was so outstanding. Would you go ahead and pull up that social story? Because that really is another illustration of what you beautifully conveyed right there.
I try to bring the real, I live this thing every day. So I've got to.
Yeah. Oh, man, I've been the mama. I know. So it's not like we're sitting here talking and thinking, you're welcome. As soon as you get off here, everything's going to be a piece of cake. But it's a process. But these things do work as you individualize it for your kids. But this is called a social. I'm sorry, Corey. My bad.
No. Yeah. So this is super small print. So I'm going to read this for you on your computer. I know it's super small. So, yeah, you want to talk about what it is first, and then you let me know you want me to read these. I can kind of.
Yeah. Y'all have heard me talk about social stories before. A lot of people connect these in their minds to working with kids with autism, and it absolutely is fantastic for kids with autism. This is fantastic for any kids who are having social, emotional, behavioral challenges. These are great for ADHD, sensory processing, anyone who's having difficulty with transitions. And a social story is kind of like a dress rehearsal for the real thing. Man, we are having difficulty with this, so we are going to write out a story, have your child help illustrate it, and you go over this with them each day. And it really brings home what the expectations are. And I want you to notice as Corey is reading this, how it has pro-social words in there. In other words, the story is about what the kids will do, not what they won't do. Instead of, we don't say, don't hit, you want to say, touch gently. That's an important point. But this is just another illustration of what Corey was talking about.
Yeah. So on the top left, we have a teacher saying, okay, class, it's time for art. Please clean off your desk. And then in the bottom there, it says, when it is time to go to a special, Mr. Yetz will let us know by making an announcement to the class. Mr. Yetz will ask us to clean off our desks. I will put my materials away.
Mm-hmm.
And then you want me to keep going?
You notice here how it is like, this is what's going to happen, and this is what I'm expected to do. And this is what I am going to do. So yeah, just keep going. Thank you.
Okay. Teacher says, please push in your chair and stand in front of your desk. And then on the bottom, it says, once everyone has cleaned their desk, Mr. Yetz will say, please push in your chair and stand in front of your desk. I will stand quietly by my desk. Okay. And then he says, please line up quietly. Then Mr. Yetz will ask us to line up quietly at the door. I will have a calm body and a quiet voice, right? Setting those expectations. Mm-hmm. Then Mr. Yetz will tell the line leader when to begin walking. When we're in the hallway, I will have a safe body and a quiet voice. Loud voices and unsafe bodies disrupt the other students' learning. When we get to the special, we will line up outside the door and wait patiently until the teacher is ready for us. I will then have a calm body and a quiet voice. And then finally, when the teacher is ready for us, I will walk to my seat and wait for instructions.
Thanks, Corey.
Yeah.
So that is creating a story, and we're good with that. Thank you.
Okay.
That is creating a story of expectations, what the behavior responses are going to be, and there's even the why. Why am I going to walk the way I'm supposed to, speak the way I'm supposed to? Because doing otherwise disrupts the class. We need to tell our kids why. Mm. Okay. And that is not taking away your authority as a parent because I said so. That is not going to intrinsically drive that lesson home for kids in the same way. Of course, it's because you said so. But, well, I say I want to keep doing this, then you can get into a battle of the wills. But there is a reason why you have your house rules, and this is how it follows the house rules from that show we did a while back. Yeah. But I wanted to go to that right now because I thought that tied so beautifully with what you shared. And you know what else Mr. Yetz can do because he's having these challenges with several students in their transitions. Even when we don't have somewhere to go, he can go practice walking in the hallway with everyone behaving the way they're supposed to. Role play, give kids time to practice and be successful when they are not having to stop something that they're loving doing. When emotions are calm, let's practice these things. Let's role play. Let your kids problem solve. You know what? We're taking grandpa to the doctor today, and you need a quiet toy that won't disrupt everyone else in the lobby, and have him work through, what do I want to do? What's the problem? I'm going to be bored. I need something constructive to do. It has to be quiet. Which toy do I pick? He can go through all of his toys and think through, will this one or will it not disrupt other people? Is it safe? Could it hurt anybody else? And then come to you with what he chose. You are empowering him and you're working on problem solving at the same time, which is excellent. One thing to keep in mind, I want to go back to anxiety just for a minute. You gave that awesome story. I'm like, we have to do social stories right now. One thing to keep in mind, some kids are anxious about something specific. So, and it may not be the transition itself. So, man, it is every time we are going to XYZ location. Has anything adverse, and I don't even mean in a criminal sense, it doesn't even have to be trauma. Has anything happened in a setting that this might remind my child of that we need to work through? That could be some sort of buried. Remember, even if kids have not been through trauma in the sense of the word that we think of it, if they experienced it, if they misperceived a situation, it was traumatic for them, and their brain can behave as if they've been through what we typically call a trauma. So, we're going to, every time we go to someone's house who has a dog, that's when it happens. And then you can read books about dogs and work through that and draw and get that communication going. So is there a common denominator on that kind of thing? Because anxiety, if I have generalized anxiety or social anxiety, yes, I don't want to leave the house, or I feel uncertain. I need predictability. I need to know what's happening all the time. But if it sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't, there are triggers, and we got to play detective there. Yeah. But what we've talked a lot about preventative and what to do to prep kids. You can use a lot of first then statements. First, we're going to do this. Then we're going to go to the store. I'm giving you 2 steps in advance here. And just like what Corey said, you want to praise your kids. And I encourage you to praise a character trait associated with the improvement you're seeing in the transition. So you showed such kindness. We were in a hurry, and you showed such kindness because you were gentle with your younger brother as you were putting on your shoes. Anything that's tie a character trait to it, again, so that we are cultivating their sense of self, and we're not just basing praise on what they do, but on who they are. But give a specific example of what they did that was an improvement, but tie a character trait to it. And that's really powerful. So and then if you have a social story or even a verbal role play rehearsal thing like Corey's done, once something's improved, like in that Mr. Yet story, okay, walking a line in the hallway is no longer disruptive, so let's update the story. It doesn't, that is repeat, repeat, repeat until it is just so ingrained and I really get it now. And the actions are following through with that. But update the story. Our class does such a good job of XYZ. Now we're going to work on this. And I have a growth mindset. When we do hard things, our brains grow. We learned how to walk in a straight line without disrupting other classes. And now we're going to work on this. It's hard because of this. But always our life is a narrative, and update that narrative too. So, and make transitions. Now we're in a transition, make it fun. So if you have multiple kids and we all have to finish getting ready in 5 minutes, you already know which child's going to take the longest, which one's the shortest, and then they're going to start acting out or attention seeking, be prepared. When I train schools, I tell them this all the time. So for the early finishers, here's your go-to if you're done before the rest of the class so that they don't get impatient, start picking on other students, for example. Be prepared ahead of time. If bath time is a thing, until we work on self-regulation and really growing social emotional skills through communication and reading social emotional books and journaling and drawing and family meetings and so forth, have the bath ready. Not, we're going to have a bath in 30 minutes and then they're sitting there kicking and screaming because now you're getting the water warm and filling the bath. So right. What can you do to make it smooth in that way? Are there any transitions that are unnecessary that where we can just have a few, not quite as many transitions, or is there a way we can rework one? Because we have to meet kids where they are. Yes, we have to work on emotional regulation. Part of that ADHD thing is they have issues a lot of times with emotional regulation, but it is also regulation to be able to switch gears and to switch my attention from this thing that I'm really loving right now to this.
Yeah.
So, what were you going to say?
Well, one of the things that I did today, like, I'm happy to share successes, but I had a failure this morning, and the failure this morning I could have learned from and paid a little bit better attention, but I guess we're all humans and we learn from our mistakes and move forward. So today, my 9-year-old and my 5-year-old were playing. We were off routine. Mommy and daddy had to finish up their tax extension. So we were in the office while the kids were playing in the living room instead of breakfast and workout like we normally do. So that was the first thing. And Roger was playing with his Pokemon cards, and Parker came in and picked one up to look at it. Well, Roger grabbed it out of his hands and pushed him. And so 5-year-old starts crying, saying he took it out of my hands and stuff like that. So I didn't feel an ounce of anger in my body. Okay. And so here's what I did. I walked over to Roger's cards and I began picking them up and putting them away. And Heather, he started flipping out. And I mean, he was like, he couldn't get the words out, right? And I'm so sad. I just got to share this though, because I know that there's parents out there that have failures like this too, right? So he was like, no, daddy, no, daddy, you can't, daddy, right? And I was very calm. And I was just like, I'll be with you in a second, buddy. And I was picking them up, and he had a specific order that he wanted them in, and I kept them in order. I didn't like throw them in angrily or whatever. And I just moved them to the side. And he screamed so loud that I felt like my ears were bleeding. Like at the end, right after I had done it, he just couldn't take it anymore. He just screamed really loud. And so my wife came to me. She's like, babe, choose your battles. like he was trying to communicate, he couldn't get it out. You should have stopped and you should have asked him what was going on and talked to him and let him be heard, right? But you ignored him and you just kept picking up. And I know you were, I was like, but babe, I was calm, I wasn't mad. And she's like, it doesn't matter. He didn't know that, right? He's just trying to tell you. And so I had to go up and talk to him in his room and just chat with him about it and say, like, I'm so sorry. I know you were trying to communicate and I was not paying attention. But at the same time, the screaming and the yelling and the fit is an unacceptable way to communicate. Just like it's unacceptable for me to yell at you, it is also unacceptable for you to yell like that ever, right? And so I should have done a better job at listening. I should have done a better job as a dad to listen to what you were saying. And for that, I'm sorry. And he was like, I'm sorry, Daddy. And we hugged it out and it was all good, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, I should share that.
Yeah, this reminds me of our repairing family relationships 1 and 2 thing that we did, I think in June. That is an excellent example. And by the way, being calm, we cannot overstate the importance of, regardless of how bad a meltdown is, we have to be this safe harbor for our kids. And you did that. If no one's in danger, communication, you must have been really mad. Tell me about that. And I know that sounds crazy if you didn't watch those shows a couple of months ago, but that connection, that communication, because his behavior was communicating, and then, but you're on a mission. It makes sense. And I'm cleaning up this mess and I'm calm. So that is an example of something so well intended, but yeah, the communication, tell me why that made you so, why you must be really mad. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
And then we're empathizing. And then we're like, the house rule says, and you remind them of the house rule. And I even have on that show, if anybody missed it, things to help with the whole sharing issue that brings up a lot of fights with siblings. The house rule says, and it's okay to be mad. These are exactly what you did. These are acceptable and these are unacceptable ways to handle it. And then we teach the one who was not treating the sibling well, how to repair that relationship. But thank you for bringing that up, because communication, it's like, it doesn't matter what topic we're talking about. Communication is where it's at. Thank you for sharing that, because I know that was super relatable. I mean, I'm telling you, if I think back on when I had boys at home, I'm like, man, did I mess that thing up? I'll think of different situations. We all do it, And so I've learned so much from the mistakes I made as a parent. And then I'm even like, I have this background and I still totally messed it up. What's wrong? Yeah. It's different when it's, it's always different when you're the mother, when you're the caregiver. And so it's progress, not perfection on all of this, but make transitions fun. Hop to the sink to brush your teeth, or fly over to put your dishes away. Play I Spy, make it fun, play music, do something to make it fun. If they are sensory aversive, we don't want to make it too crazy, but we do want to make it fun. So why are they having it? How do we prevent it? And then routines, how can we tweak it? Visual schedules, apps. There are apps or visual timers that can help. Role play, teach them to problem solve, be prepared ahead of time with books, stories, puzzles, games to keep them occupied. Know what those trouble moments are and have them at the red. I'm prepared for this. And then make it fun, always communicating. Anything else I think you want to say on this?
No, I mean, I think we're good. I think that we should probably move on, because I mean, we've had so many Corey examples. I mean, I'm telling you, I've got transition examples for days. I probably give you another one before we're done here, but
let's hear it. You can glance at my notes and see if there's anything kind of crucial I've left out. I think I've kind of.
It is. I mean, we've gotten a lot of good stuff here. I think when we're talking about preventative strategies, though, I think it's important to just touch on sleep, routines like we talked about.
I always forget stuff. I'm so.
No, it's good.
Yeah. The sleep and hunger are two big triggers, even for kids who do not have any developmental delays or anything like that. So if your kids are having difficulty sleeping, there's a reason why. And so you want to get to the root of that. And as far as food, it's not only hunger, it's, are we feeding them the right foods? Might they have food sensitivities that are manifesting behaviorally and emotionally? So the top 3 contributors in the kids we see, 85% of the kids we see have food sensitivities, not allergies, sensitivities that make them irritable, have difficulty with transitions, foggy thinking, etc. Are dairy, gluten, and sugar. But think about not just what's in their belly, not just that they have food in their belly, but what it is, because that issues with kind of brain connectivity are very tied to having food sensitivities, and the food sensitivities exacerbate those issues as well.
Yeah. It's the sample I was gonna mention again is like every night I go for a walk with my 2 boys. My girl's just too busy. Like she's dancing and just too busy, right? So well, sometimes we go on a bike ride together. Probably once a week we ride bikes. But my 2 boys, 5-year-old, 9-year-old, sometimes they wear shirts, sometimes they don't. We walk in the neighborhood shirtless men, right? But these boys, but they will hold my hand and we'll walk through the neighborhood. But getting to the walk is the most difficult, because I don't know if you've seen the show The Good Place. Have you seen the show The Good Place on Netflix?
No? I have not, no.
All right, it's on Netflix now. I think it was on ABC or something like that, or something. I don't know. But there's this girl, Janet. She's a robot, and Janet has a kill switch. It's a button that you press, and it shuts her down. But in order to press the kill switch, Janet has a defense mechanism that makes her start screaming and yelling, "Please, God, don't press my button, please." And then they're like, whoa, I'm really sorry. She's like, don't worry about my defense mechanism. That's just part of me. I'm a robot. I have no feelings. It's okay. Go ahead and press the button. And she's like, no. Right. So I'm like, every time I go, "Hey, Raj, let's go for a walk, buddy." He's like, "No, Daddy, I'm so tired. Like I can't, my legs hurt. I'm hungry. I'm starving. I really don't want to walk. It's hot outside." And his Janet kill switch goes off. And I'm like, I just stay calm. Right. And I'm like, "Buddy, it's okay. This is just your Janet kill switch." I say that sometimes if you watched it with us. So I'm like, "Buddy, this is your Janet kill switch. It's okay. Listen, you do this every time I say we want to go on a walk, but you forget the reason I want to go on this walk with you is I really like it. I like holding your hand, man. I like walking in the neighborhood. Dude, we talk about so many great things on our walks. I love you. I want to go on this walk with you." And he's just like, "Oh, all right, but it's a short one every day." I'm telling you, every day. And we always walk the same distance. And it's always in the neighborhood. But it's like, "All right, Daddy, but it's a short one." I'm like, "All right, man."
What are 3 things he loves about the walk? 3 things he's grateful for that have to do with that time together. Write a story. Write your own Roger kill switch story. Make it funny.
I should call it something else.
No. I meant, write a story together, draw, illustrate, make it funny, laugh, but also teaching. Sometimes I don't want to go for a walk with Dad because I say it's hot or I'm hungry. But these are the things I really like about walking, and also why, the time with Dad, why it's important to walk, etc. And, kind of maybe flip the narrative a little bit on that.
Yeah, I'll try my best.
That'll be magical. Like you do that, you're good.
I will try. I think we got it all. I'm looking at the list. Hold on. Let me see here. We talked about parents remaining calm and supportive. I've talked about that. We talked about a brain break. Like music in a game and learning, like just make it fun after the transition, right? And praise the
even during the have kid-friendly music going, and they wiggle their way to the sink or they hop like a bunny to the bathtub. Anything that's fun, silly, that takes their mind. And if they start fussing, you're already, what gets attention is what gets exacerbated. Now, when a child is trying to communicate with you, that's different. But we've got this thing with transitions, And if I just rush the rest, it's okay, what's wrong? That's not going to work. And so bring up something else. Oh, you're going to be excited tomorrow when you turn in your science project. I mean, whatever. You kind of keep it going. And sometimes there's a certain dose of ignoring that's healthy when you're trying to break through these cycles.
Yeah.
And that does not take the place of always listening to your kids, because this is like, it's a knee-jerk response. This happens. You've identified what the triggers are, what the underlying factors are. You've done preventative. This is still happening. And then, and even in the, you still talk about it. You seem really frustrated right now. Tell me about that, buddy. What's going on? And still work through it. But in that moment when the transition needs to happen, redirect, distract, make it fun. But if you're standing in line, play I Spy, play music, hop around, do something, make the transition itself fun.
Well, everybody, we are going to show you this resource and take away our faces. There we go. So we've got 3 centers for you here in the Texas area. If you are watching in the Texas area on Central Time, these 3 centers are not the only centers in Texas, but they are the centers where Heather's staff works. So we want to go ahead and share those. Katy, Mansfield, and Southlake across the massive state of Texas. And then, of course, you can find Heather's page, The Hidden Churn, as well on Facebook. So be sure to check that out. Resources, different content, and information shared there as well. And we've got the phone numbers up there for you on the screen. If you have any questions, you want some resources, some help, you just want somebody to talk to, reach out. We got your back, regardless of whether you end up coming to brain balance centers or not. The team is here to help you and support you, especially through this difficult time that we're all dealing with. And there's tons of options, whether you are physically coming to the center with a mask on or you are doing our virtual program. There's lots of options for you. So please reach out and we'd be happy to help you. And Heather, anything else that I left off?
No, I think you nailed it.
I love it. I love it. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. And
next week is 1 week we're taking off, and then we'll be back the following week.
Sounds good.
I'll be here on Friday with Dr. Brian, though.
Sounds good, everybody. Take care. We'll see you soon.